And 65% of respondents on a recent Forrester survey said they already use more than one public or private cloud platform, indicating that the hybrid cloud is a reality. So what is the source of this significant momentum for building applications that run across multiple cloud platforms? Here to tell us about this is Tim Yeaton. He's Senior Vice President of the Infrastructure Business Group at Red Hat. And Tim, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thanks for being here. Again, real quickly, just before this segment, you did a keynote at TIA 2016, Network of the Future. How did that go?
It went great. I think what's happening in the industry has a strong association with moving to agile and virtual infrastructure and open source, which has been sort of the core of our DNA for our entire history.
So I want to talk primarily today briefly about improving the customer experience, but really under the umbrella of the public, private, and hybrid cloud and those platforms and how they lend themselves to that experience, right? I want to start with the private cloud. What is fueling the growth of private cloud right now?
Well, I think in most enterprises, it's really about needing to digitally transform. It varies by industry, but all roads lead to the same requirement to get more agility, to build new workloads faster, to improve the customer or end user experience, while still being able to scale and be nimble and bring the traditional infrastructure in. So I think the focus on building private clouds is really to provide a basis for the digital transformation journey for most of these large enterprises.
Now, of course, DevOps teams out there are building applications across multiple platforms, really public cloud platforms amongst others. Let's just talk about public cloud platforms right now.
Sure. Well, it's interesting. Most large companies, as they look at their cloud strategies, certainly want to embrace the public cloud where it makes sense, and that's been a significant trend. But also tie that to their private cloud infrastructure. So what you're seeing on the public side in most of these big company strategies is a desire to have multiple public cloud providers, be they traditional telcos as service providers or the big cloud vendors like an Amazon or Google. So and DevOps becomes important because you want to build applications in a way that they can be readily moved or bursted to any one of these public clouds and or supported on premise. And that's really, I think, what you're seeing. The notion of DevOps is continuous integration and deployment across these multiple public and private clouds.
Now, I said in the introduction that 65% of a recent Forrester survey, or the respondents of that survey, are using multiple cloud platforms, primarily, again, hybrid cloud platforms. Is Red Hat following sort of that trend in the market?
Well, Red Hat actually had a vision, probably going back 4 or 5 years ago, that we actually called the open hybrid cloud. And what was, I think, on our minds at the time that I think has really played out is we observed that most large customers had traditional applications, some of which would never lend themselves to the cloud native model. But we couldn't abandon those. I mean, they're a key part of what Red Hat's done for those customers in the traditional data center. So we started to think about, okay, how can we bridge from traditional workloads that may not ever be able to change but remain strategic, even as you're standing up a cloud infrastructure, knowing that, again, some of it's going to be on the private side with things like OpenStack, and some will be on the public side. So everything that we've built was with an eye toward how do we build the infrastructure elements to support the different workload types, but tie it all together in very consistent ways with management and automation, with DevOps and containerization of microservices apps, storage, middleware. So we're unique in that across all of the deployment styles, from traditional bare metal and classic scale of virtualization all the way out to multiple public clouds, we've created a consistent framework across our products to make that seamless. And we're really the only vendor that's done that. And it's because we thought about this many years ago before most people realized it was likely to be a hybrid world. And we just made, I think, some good choices over the years.
Now, you talked specifically sort of about your cloud management portfolio and really the culture of Red Hat, how it facilitated that portfolio. But right, let's get away from the technology and the platform for now. Let's just talk about the culture itself of Red Hat. And I don't normally do this when I talk about specific, like sort of a plug for a company, but I don't view this as a plug. It's certainly a culture that Red Hat has formed, and it's really like catching on in the industry. Can you sort of elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, Red Hat is, really the only large pure open source company. So everything we do is open source. So we're productizing basically upstream projects. So there's a couple of things in our philosophy that's very unique. So first of all our development is what we call upstream first. So our engineers live in these upstream communities, and in many cases, they're driven more by the direction of the community and consensus there than by what we might think we'd like to build. But the nature of the model is, our job is to embrace where the community is going and what innovations they're driving and making that consumable. So Red Hat as a culture is almost a perfect replica of open, innovative, collaborative development communities in the large, because every one of our engineers is participating in those or making those consumable for companies. And everything. If you've read Jim Whitehurst's book, he does a pretty good job of sort of describing what that culture's like. But I think the simplest way to think of it is it's a reflection of how the software industry has evolved to be open, collaborative. And if you look at it today, there's about 1 million open source projects in the world, and the font of most original innovation in software technologies is happening in these upstream communities. In my keynote, I cited an interesting statistic. If you look at our infrastructure portfolio, on average, about 20 to 25% of the code shipped that we ship in commercial product was authored by a Red Hat employee. Yet somewhere between 80 and 90% of that code was authored by someone paid to do it. And I think it's a testament to how these, the network effects of collaborative development sort of can really play out. I mean, and for us, it lets us, innovate on a much broader canvas than we might otherwise be able to do.
Well, it's great to see that Red Hat's still leading the industry in a number of fronts, and also the host sponsor of TI 2016 Network.
Which we're very excited about.
So yeah, we appreciate that very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Tim, it was great to talk to you.
Yes, you as well. Thanks very much.
All right, thanks, Tim. And thank you for joining us at TI 2016 Network of the Future from the Dell TI Now studio. For more coverage from the Dell TI Now studio, please visit tinow.org. So long.